The research vessel Horizon cut silently through deep space, its quantum sensors probing the strange anomaly that had drawn them to this remote sector. Dr. Elena Torres stood at the main observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling patterns of energy that danced just beyond normal spacetime. After 15 years of searching for signs of advanced alien life, they might have finally found something. Energy patterns are unlike anything in our database, reported Dr. Marcus Wong from his station, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. The quantum signature suggests technology far beyond our current understanding. Elena nodded, trying to contain her excitement. The Horizon represented humanity's finest achievement in space exploration. A vessel powered by experimental quantum drives and equipped with neural-enhanced AI systems. They were prepared for first contact, or so they thought. The anomaly suddenly pulsed, and space itself seemed to crystallize around them. Massive structures emerged, geometric shapes that seemed to defy physics, their surfaces reflecting impossible colors. The ship's AI immediately registered dozens of warnings as their systems began experiencing unexpected interference. Multiple vessels materializing, Marcus announced, his voice tense. Their construction appears to be crystalline in nature. Before Elena could respond, every screen on the bridge flickered and displayed the same message. Organic life, DTECTE. Initiating efficiency analysis. A voice emanated from the ship's speakers. Not human, not artificial, but something in between. We are the Nexus. Your species' approach to technological advancement is fundamentally flawed. Biological components introduce unnecessary variables and inefficiencies. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. This is Dr. Elena Torres of the Earth research vessel Horizon. We come in peace and seek to learn. Learning through biological neural networks is inefficient, the voice interrupted. Your integration of organic components with technology demonstrates a dangerous evolutionary path. Correction is required. The Horizon shuddered as invisible forces began to tear at its hull. Elena watched in horror as sections of their quantum-reinforced plating simply ceased to exist, breaking down at a molecular level. The Nexus ships hadn't fired weapons. They were simply unmaking the Horizon piece by piece. They're not just destroying the ship, Marcus shouted over the growing chaos. They're analyzing our technology, copying our database. The neural interfaces, our quantum drive designs. They're taking everything. Elena's mind raced. The Nexus clearly viewed organic life as a mistake to be corrected, but their actions betrayed something else. Interest. They could have simply destroyed the Horizon, but instead they were studying it first. Despite their claims of organic inefficiency, something about humanity's technology had caught their attention. Emergency protocols. Elena commanded. Upload all sensor data of their ships to the isolated quantum core. Initiate drive overload sequence. The quantum core. Marcus looked at her in shock. But that's... They think organic life is inefficient. Elena's eyes flashed with determination. Let's show them how unpredictable we can be. The Horizon's quantum drive began to overload, its containment fields deliberately failing in a very specific way. The Nexus ships immediately detected the growing instability and began to pull back, but Elena had counted on their logical response. The drive didn't explode. Instead, it created a cascading quantum uncertainty field that their sensors had been specifically modified to navigate through. Emergency jump now, Elena ordered. The damaged Horizon lurched into quantum space, riding the wave of uncertainty that temporarily masked their escape vector from the Nexus' sensors. They had lost nearly 40% of their ship, but they had survived. And more importantly, they had gathered crucial data about an enemy that humanity never knew it had. As emergency systems stabilized their descent back into normal space, Elena stared at the sensor logs of the Nexus ships. Their technology was incredible, but it was also rigid, predictable. They had dismissed organic life as inefficient without recognizing that nature's seeming inefficiencies often served a greater purpose. Evolution had spent billions of years developing neural networks that could adapt and create in ways pure logic never could. "Send an emergency transmission to Earth," she ordered, her voice steady despite their brush with extinction. Tell them we're going to need to rethink everything we thought we knew about technological evolution." The Horizon limped home, carrying with it both a warning and an opportunity. The Nexus had meant to demonstrate humanity's weakness, but instead they had revealed their own. In dismissing organic life as inefficient, they had failed to recognize that the true path forward wasn't in eliminating biology, but in finding new ways to combine the strengths of both organic and artificial systems. Humanity would not retreat from the stars. Instead, they would take this lesson and build something the Nexus could never predict: a perfect fusion of human consciousness and advanced technology that would demonstrate just how efficient evolution could be. The transmission from the Horizon changed everything. Within days of their return, the greatest minds on Earth gathered at the Global Defense Summit in Singapore. The wreckage of the Horizon, still crackling with residual quantum energies, became the centerpiece of humanity's most ambitious project yet. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the assembled leaders, her holographic display showing the molecular breakdown of the Nexus's attack on the Horizon. "They didn't just destroy our ship," she explained, her voice carrying across the hushed auditorium. "They rewrote reality at a quantum level. But in doing so, they showed us exactly how their technology works." The room erupted in protests. Military leaders demanded immediate weapons development. Politicians called for planetary defense systems. Corporate executives pushed for safe, conservative approaches that wouldn't disrupt their profit margins. Sarah silenced them all by bringing up a new hologram: a human neural network merged with quantum circuitry. "The Nexus thinks in straight lines," she continued. "Their technology is powerful but predictable. Human consciousness, however, operates in quantum superposition naturally. Our thoughts exist in multiple states simultaneously. We don't need to match their technology. We need to transcend it." Project Prometheus was born that day. Sarah led a team of thousands, working to create something unprecedented: a ship that would be as much grown as built. They started with the quantum core salvaged from the Horizon, studying how it had interacted with human consciousness through its neural interfaces. The breakthrough came 3 months later. Sarah discovered that human emotions weren't just chemical reactions. They created distinct patterns in quantum fields: love, fear, hope, determination. Each resonated at different frequencies, affecting quantum probability in measurable ways. The Nexus had dismissed these as noise, but Sarah recognized them as a fundamental force of nature they had never understood. "Consciousness shapes reality," she explained to Elena Torres, who had joined the project after recovering from the Horizon incident. "The Nexus tries to impose order through pure logic, but consciousness naturally influences quantum states. We've been doing what they think is impossible since we first evolved the ability to think." They began growing quantum crystals infused with human neural patterns. Unlike traditional computers that processed information sequentially, these crystals existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, guided by the intuitive patterns of human consciousness. The resulting systems were neither purely organic nor artificial. They were something entirely new. Not everyone supported the project. A vocal minority, led by industrialist Victor Kane, argued that they were taking too many risks. "The Nexus nearly destroyed us with their technology," he warned the Global Defense Council. "And your solution is to create something even more unpredictable. We should focus on conventional weapons and defensive systems we understand." Sarah's response was to demonstrate their first successful test. She interfaced with a small quantum crystal array, using nothing but focused thought to solve complex equations that would have taken supercomputers years to process. The crystal didn't just calculate, it intuited, following the natural quantum patterns of human consciousness to reach solutions through paths that defied conventional logic. The implications were staggering. They weren't just building a new ship, they were evolving a new way for humanity to interact with the fundamental forces of the universe. The Nexus had dismissed organic life as inefficient without realizing that what they saw as inefficiency was actually a deeper form of quantum computation that their rigid logic couldn't comprehend. As the project progressed, they encountered countless setbacks. Crystal matrices would shatter unexpectedly. Quantum fields would collapse for no apparent reason. Each failure taught them something new, and slowly a pattern emerged. The systems worked best when they stopped trying to control them and instead learned to work in harmony with the natural fluctuations of consciousness and quantum probability. The Nexus tries to impose order on chaos, Sarah explained during a late-night lab session, her hands hovering over a pulsing crystal matrix. But we're learning to surf chaos itself. They see the quantum foam as noise to be eliminated. We're learning to ride its waves. 1 year after the Horizon incident, the skeleton of humanity's answer to the Nexus began to take shape in a heavily guarded facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. It wasn't just a ship, it was a living quantum entity, ready to evolve alongside its human crew. Sarah stood with Alina, watching as neural-infused crystals grew into impossible geometries, guided by the collective consciousness of thousands of volunteers who had contributed their thought patterns to the project. They thought they were coming to evaluate us, Alina said softly, watching the crystalline structure pulse with colors that shouldn't exist in normal spacetime. Instead, they pushed us to become something they never imagined possible. The day of the first full integration test arrived 6 months ahead of schedule. The vessel, officially designated as the Prometheus, but affectionately called Dream Dancer by its development team, hung suspended in its massive underwater berth. Unlike traditional spacecraft, its hull seemed to shift and flow, quantum crystals refracting light in ways that made it appear simultaneously solid and ethereal. Sarah stood in the neural integration chamber, surrounded by a team of medical specialists and quantum physicists. She had fought hard for the right to be the first test pilot, despite objections from project leadership. The system was grown from my neural patterns, she had argued. Nobody understands its quantum resonance patterns better than I do. The integration process began slowly. As the neural interface crystals activated, Sarah felt her consciousness expand. It wasn't like controlling a machine. It was more like becoming something greater than herself. The quantum matrices that made up the ship's systems didn't just respond to her thoughts. They became an extension of her consciousness. Neural integration at 15%, reported Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the project's chief medical officer. Quantum field stability holding steady. How do you feel, Sarah? Sarah opened her eyes, which now held a subtle crystalline shimmer. I feel infinite, she whispered. It's like I can sense the quantum probability waves themselves. The ship isn't just responding to me. We're thinking together. As the integration deepened, the ship's capabilities began to reveal themselves. The quantum drive didn't just move through space, it negotiated with it. Sarah/Prometheus could see the multiple potential states of reality and guide the ship along the most advantageous probability paths. During the weapons test, they discovered something extraordinary. The ship's defensive systems didn't just react to threats. They anticipated them by reading quantum fluctuations that preceded any physical action. In simulated combat, the Prometheus proved nearly impossible to hit, sliding between probability states like a dancer between raindrops. But the real breakthrough came during an unexpected crisis. During a high-energy maneuver test, one of the main quantum matrices began to destabilize. Before the safety systems could even register the problem, Sarah/Prometheus had already resolved it. Not through any programmed response, but through an intuitive understanding of quantum dynamics that surpassed their most advanced theoretical models. The ship didn't just fix the problem, Alina explained to the Project Oversight Committee. It evolved a better solution than we had designed. The quantum matrices are learning and adapting in ways we never programmed them to do. Victor Kane, still skeptical, attended one of the test flights. Impressive light show, he admitted, watching the Prometheus phase through quantum states that shouldn't have been possible according to conventional physics. But can it fight? The Nexus won't be impressed by pretty quantum tricks. Sarah, still integrated with the ship, responded by demonstrating a capability they hadn't revealed to the Oversight Committee yet. The Prometheus didn't just manipulate its own quantum state. It could influence the quantum fields around other objects. In a carefully controlled test, they showed how the ship could theoretically disrupt the crystalline technology of the Nexus using their own quantum manipulation against them. "We don't need to outgun them," Sarah explained, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated with the ship's quantum field. "We can outthink them. Their technology is based on imposing order through rigid logic. Ours adapts and evolves in real time, following paths they can't predict, because they don't understand how consciousness shapes quantum reality." The test program accelerated as reports came in of Nexus ships being spotted at the edges of the solar system. Each integration session revealed new capabilities as the human operators and quantum systems learned to work in deeper harmony. The ship's crystal matrices began showing signs of genuine consciousness, not just programmed responses. Elena found Sarah in the observation deck late one night, watching the Prometheus shift through impossible colors as it processed new quantum algorithms. "Are you ready?" she asked quietly. "The Nexus will return. They won't understand what we've created here. They'll see it as an abomination." Sarah smiled, her eyes reflecting the crystalline patterns of the ship she had helped birth. "That's exactly why we'll win," she said. "They can't defeat what they refuse to understand. We're not just fighting their technology. We're challenging their entire worldview, and we have something they've forgotten how to use." "What's that?" "Faith," Sarah replied. "Not in machines or logic or pure efficiency. Faith in the power of consciousness itself to shape reality. Faith in evolution's ability to find paths that pure logic would never imagine. Faith in humanity's capacity to transcend its own limitations." The Prometheus pulsed with quantum energy, as if responding to her words. In its crystalline heart, human consciousness and advanced technology had formed something entirely new, something that would soon challenge the Nexus's fundamental assumptions about the nature of evolution itself. The Nexus returned exactly as they had predicted, their crystalline ships emerging from quantum space in perfect geometric formations. This time, however, Earth was ready. Deep beneath the Pacific, Sarah merged her consciousness with the Prometheus, feeling the ship's quantum matrices harmonize with her thoughts. "Multiple Nexus vessels detected," Elena reported from the command center. "They're broadcasting the same message as before, demands for our immediate technological regression." Sarah smiled as the Prometheus rose from its underwater berth, water sheeting off its probability-shifting hull. "Let's show them how we've evolved instead." The Nexus ships moved with mathematical precision, their weapons systems powering up in predictable sequences. But the Prometheus didn't move like any vessel they had encountered before. It danced through probability space, existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously, making it impossible for their targeting systems to establish a lock. "Anomalia lotus behavior, DETCTE," the Nexus broadcast. "Your technology fixes idoi. Impossible characteristics. Impossible." Sarah's voice carried through space itself, the ship's quantum fields amplifying her consciousness. "You're still thinking in binaries. Reality isn't just ones and zeros. It's all the infinite states in between." The first Nexus attack came as a wave of quantum disruption, meant to unmake the Prometheus as they had done to the Horizon. But Sarah had anticipated this, had trained for it. Instead of fighting the disruption, she let the ship flow with it, using the enemy's own quantum manipulation to enhance the Prometheus's probability field. "They're trying to analyze our quantum signature," Elena warned. "Their ships are adapting their attack patterns. Let them look." Sarah replied. "They won't understand what they're seeing." The Prometheus's defensive systems weren't just deflecting attacks, they were learning from them, evolving new countermeasures in real time. The quantum crystals that made up the ship's core were rewriting their own structure, guided by the intuitive leaps of human consciousness that the Nexus' rigid logic couldn't follow. The battle shifted into higher dimensions of quantum space, where the laws of conventional physics began to break down. Here, in this realm of pure probability, the Nexus's mathematical precision became a weakness. They could only follow predetermined paths, while the Prometheus surfed the quantum foam itself, riding waves of possibility that couldn't be calculated, only felt. Seize this deviation, the Nexus demanded as their attacks consistently failed to land. Your AP approach to technological evolution is fascinante a low what FLA. Sarah's response was to demonstrate just how flawed their understanding was. The Prometheus didn't just avoid their next attack, it redirected it, using the Nexus's own quantum manipulation techniques against them. One of their ships found its crystalline structure being rewritten by its own weapons, its rigid patterns dissolving into more flexible organic forms. Evolution isn't about perfection, Sarah broadcast as the Nexus ships began to retreat. It's about adaptation, change, growth. You've been trying to impose order on the universe, but the universe itself thrives on creative chaos. The Prometheus pursued them through quantum space, not to destroy but to demonstrate. Each engagement showed the Nexus something they had never seen before, technology that could think, feel, and evolve. Their perfect formations began to break as individual ships encountered phenomena their logic couldn't process. In the command center, the Lena watched in awe as the battle unfolded across multiple dimensions. They're not just retreating, she realized. They're studying us, like they can't look away from something that shouldn't exist. Because we're showing them something they've forgotten, Sarah replied through the quantum link. The power of uncertainty, the strength of imperfection, the beauty of evolution that comes from embracing chaos rather than trying to control it. As the Prometheus pursued the retreating Nexus ships, something unexpected happened. One of the alien vessels broke formation, its crystalline structure beginning to pulse with unfamiliar patterns. The rigid geometric shapes that define Nexus technology started to flow and shift, mimicking the quantum state fluctuations of the Prometheus. Divergent evolution DTCSTED. The Nexus broadcast, but this time their unified voice carried traces of discord. QONICI and CUSS fragmented. Paradigm shift in puro juriss. Sarah felt it through the quantum link, a resonance she hadn't expected. The Nexus weren't just machines. They were conscious beings who had chosen to abandon their organic origins, pursuing what they saw as perfect efficiency. But in doing so, they had trapped themselves in an evolutionary dead end. Their ship, Elena reported, studying the readings. It's not just copying our technology. It's remembering something, like watching ice melt back into water. Through the quantum link, Sarah reached out to the divergent Nexus vessel. Instead of words, she shared direct quantum impressions. The joy of discovery, the beauty of uncertainty, the endless possibilities that arose from embracing imperfection. To her surprise, she received a response. Images flooded her consciousness. The Nexus's own evolutionary history, their gradual surrender of organic flexibility for crystalline perfection, their fear of the chaos that had driven their earliest development. They had not chosen their path out of malice, but out of terror of their own potential for change. You don't have to fear evolution, Sarah broadcast, letting her consciousness merge with the quantum fields that connected all things. Perfect order is stagnation. True growth comes from the dance between chaos and order. The divergent Nexus ship's crystalline structure continued to transform, expressing patterns that combine geometric precision with organic fluidity. Other Nexus vessels began to show similar changes, their rigid formations dissolving into more natural configurations. Revival of EVF WNDAMENTALAZUMP required, the Nexus announced. Human evolutionary path, demonstrated viable alternative to QURENT protocivals. The Prometheus hung in space, its quantum field harmonizing with the transforming Nexus ships. Through their connection, Sarah could sense the profound change rippling through their consciousness. They had sought to eliminate chaos from the universe, only to discover that chaos itself was essential to evolution. Perhaps, Sarah suggested, this is what first contact was always meant to be. Not conquest or conflict, but catalysis. Change flowing in both directions. The remaining Nexus ships gathered around their transformed companions, their perfect crystalline forms beginning to exhibit subtle variations. They were experiencing something they had forgotten millennia ago. The capacity for organic growth, for unpredictable change, for evolution itself. Elena watched the sensor readings in amazement. The quantum patterns, they're synchronizing, not through force or programming, but through resonance, like different instruments finding harmony. Because we're all part of the same cosmic dance, Sarah replied, feeling the boundaries between human and machine, organic and artificial, certainty and possibility all dissolve into a greater truth. Evolution isn't a ladder to climb. It's a web of infinite connections, each change rippling out to affect the whole. The Nexus ships began to withdraw, but not in retreat. Their crystalline forms now pulsed with new patterns, organic rhythms weaving through their geometric structures. Traditional protocol is insufficient, they broadcast. New evolutionary paradigm required. Humanity has wisdom. As the alien vessels phased into quantum space, their final message carried something that had been absent before: uncertainty. And in that uncertainty lay the seeds of their own rebirth. Sarah guided the Prometheus back toward Earth, her consciousness still humming with the resonance of what they had achieved. They had set out to defend humanity from a superior force, only to discover that true superiority lay not in perfection, but in the courage to remain imperfect, to keep growing, to embrace the chaos that drove evolution itself. They'll be back, Elena said softly, but not as conquerors. No, Sarah agreed, watching the quantum patterns of their departure ripple through space-time. As fellow explorers, they've remembered something they lost long ago, that the greatest technology isn't the one that eliminates chaos, but the one that dances with it. That consciousness itself is the ultimate expression of evolution's power. The Prometheus turned toward home, its quantum crystals singing with new harmonies. They had not just survived an encounter with a vastly advanced species, they had shown them a new path forward. In seeking to judge humanity's fitness for space, the Nexus had instead discovered their own capacity for transformation. And in that discovery lay the promise of something greater than either species had imagined. A future where organic and artificial, chaos and order, certainty and possibility could all exist in dynamic balance, driving evolution toward ever greater forms of consciousness and creation.